Good evening. This is the Dobbs Ferry Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for May 8th, 2024. And let me begin by noting that our chairman, Peter Hoffman, is not sitting in this chair tonight because he has tendered his resignation. He served on the zoning board for 40 years, and I'm not quite sure how long he was chairman, but a number of years.
A long time.
And we all enjoyed working with him, and his leadership is certainly going to be missed. But I have been appointed to complete his term, so I will be serving as chairman, and the items on our agenda tonight, the first item is to approve the minutes of, I think it's February 2024 meeting, but I believe the only person here tonight who was present is Mr. Capasso, who does not constitute a quorum for that, so we'll adjourn that to the next meeting. And the only item we have is an application concerning 443 Broadway, which is a existing multifamily property, and it's in the B zone, and there are 4 variances that are being sought. One is for the side yard setback. The minimum is 10 feet, and the proposed is 0.68 feet, requiring a variance of 9.32 feet. And there's also a required minimum rear yard setback of 25 feet, and the proposal is for 1.7 feet, requiring a variance of 23.3. Both of those relate to extending non-conforming circumstances that were there for many years. There are 2 other variances. One is for the amount of impervious surfaces that will be provided after this project is completed. The maximum is 60%. And the proposal is for 74.7%, which is a variance of 2.2%. And finally, there's a village requirement for off-street parking, which would be 11 parking spaces based on the number of units and the number of bedrooms at this location. And the proposal is for 8 parking spaces, so the request is for a variance of 3. Who will be heard on this application?
Good evening, Chairman. How are you? Good to see you there. Patty Steinschneider from Gotham Design, representing the applicant who's the owner of the building, Luigi DiPaola, who is here with us this evening. This building has been an interesting one for a long time in Dobbs Ferry. It was one of the first buildings when I came to town that I thought somebody needed to do something about that building. That was back in like 1980. It was owned by, I guess, a priest. It was a strange setup, but the village and he had worked out certain things. He ended up being at a state where it was ready for him to sell and move on. Luigi purchased the property, and we have been putting together a concept for how to do this and how to fix this up so that we take the existing building and we extend its current use as multifamily and make it something that hopefully will be an attractive image in our village as opposed to one that kind of detracts. There were 3 buildings when I came to town that I felt were issues. This was one. The second one was the building that used to have Golden Dragon, and it had like a stucco front that looked like pebbles had been thrown at it. The third one is still in need of repair, which is the one down on Palisade Street. that's on the corner that looks like it was a couple of different houses that started to be built, and they weren't sure which one to do, and then they just stopped. So maybe someday we'll get to fix that one, too.
I can think of one or two others.
Yeah, I'm
That's
sure
neither here
there's a
nor there.
list. So this is one of the ones that I thought was most, would really be good if it changes things. It is next to the Catholic Church. It's next to the high school, middle school. It's a prominent location. It's something you see when you come into town on Broadway from the north. If you're coming from anywhere else and you're going north, you can't avoid going past it. So I think it'd be great if it's a good one. As you have already noted, there are 4 variances that we're seeking this evening. 2 of them are effectively just to continue the existing, we're not changing them. The third is we're going from what's currently 72.5% to 74.7%, and that's mainly to improve the, good evening, Mr. Nabos. Is to be able to have better walkways coming around the building. It's not, there are some changes that are being made to the building, but there's no desire to try and make the building bigger. And the last one is probably the one that's the most interesting as an issue, which is parking. And it's rare to have a property in Dobbs Ferry that we don't have a conversation about parking. We have proposed a total of 8 units. We have proposed a total of 8 parking spaces so that each unit would have 1 parking space. The requirement under the code is for a total of 11. So we would be seeking a variance for 3. We would also be willing, if it was deemed to be more appropriate, if there's a need to try and improve parking in the village as well as pedestrian travel, that if the village wanted to do this as more of a payment in lieu of fee or something like that, we would certainly consider that. This project, if it goes past this board, will then go to the planning board, which has the authority to enter into those kinds of things. So I think the Board of Trustees would have to grant that, right? So those are things that we're willing to leave on the table. But we do want to try and get into a position where we can go to that next board, which we have to get these variances to do. Here's just the map, the survey of the property showing what it is. I blew up the, we can get the, yeah, yep. Go back. Okay, blew up the corner there so you could see the 0.68 and the 1.7 in that corner. Luckily, the positioning of this, while it's very close to its property lines, it's got the school property next door, which is basically, it's kind of an interesting open part of the school. It's not a part of the property that's actually used very much. There's actually a bunch of pines that kind of shield. It actually looks like a very nice side yard for Luigi's building. So we're not up against something. We're not casting shadows on anything. We're to the basically northeast of our neighbor to the west. So I think we're positioned that I don't think we'll have any adverse impacts from continuing the use of this building in the way it is. If I go to, I don't need to waste your time with most of this. Actually, on that one, this is showing what the existing conditions are of the parking, which is just generally a open parking area. So we're proposing to actually have articulated spaces with 8 on site. We could.
Are the 6 current spaces, are those just the ones in the lot, not the 2 in the garage?
There is no parking in the garage at this point.
Okay, so it's just
It's just
outside.
the 6 cars out. Yeah, the garage has been used for other things, so it's kind of been compromised as parking. There's also spaces in this building that we're kind of really unsure of how to make use of. We've got a basement that's down below the basement, which I guess was kind of the church. So we're still trying to figure out maybe that's storage for people who live there. At the same time, we don't want to create a rabbit warren of people, hoarders, putting things into the basement. So we've got to figure that one out, but I don't think that has zoning implications. The biggest change that we're proposing here is actually the kind of the gray area that you see there right now, and I'll have some photos to show you in a second. The entrances to the units is very interesting. They have staircases. It's almost like, it's like where you've got these staircases that you don't know where they're going to. And, when somebody says, well, how do I get to that apartment? It's a trick. So we're trying to clean that all up. We're trying to keep the balcony feeling. I think it's nice for the apartments to have an outdoor space. So we've kept the balconies, but we're not using the balconies as the access to any of the units. Instead, what we're doing is we're creating a staircase, which will serve the 2 units on the second floor and the 2 units on the third floor. And the entrance to the 2 units on the first floor will be direct entrances from the exterior. And then the entrances in the basement is a door that's to the right of that staircase that currently exists and goes down to serve 2 spaces in the lower level. I don't think you need to go through most of this stuff. I mean, tell me if there's stuff of interest. I mean, what we're showing here is how the existing plans are the ones on top. We've overlaid on the existing the outline of what's being proposed. So you can see we're kind of following the exact edge of things. Down below is the reverse. We're showing the plans of the new units, and what we've superimposed there is the outline of the existing in blue. We've done the same thing for the second floor and for the third floor. So it's basically we're taking the existing building and we're repairing it. The biggest repair that we're making is the roof. The roof is in really tenuous condition. It has areas that have rotted out that need to be replaced. The best way for us to actually approach this is to remove the roof on the entire building, reframe the roof, do it the way it should be, and then make a watertight roof that is properly insulated. One of the things we'll be able to do with this building is greatly enhance its efficiency, make it a building that's consistent with Dobbs Ferry being under the Energy Stretch Code. So I think there are a lot of benefits that we'll get for the community. We're also trying to maintain a kind of fun exterior at the same time, not have it be puzzling. The biggest confusion here is that somebody's house or are those apartments? I think people will guess that they're apartments. Here are just the other elevations of the building. We're also, instead of doing a lot of hips that come into gables, which is the cause of many of the leaks, we've kept it very straightforward with gables in most of the cases. A couple of places where we have like a shed roof, but it's pretty much just steep gables, which I think works well with this house. This is the lower picture here is the existing condition. The upper picture is what we're proposing it to look like. We haven't really picked colors at this point, but the big thing these days is either black windows with black walls or black windows with white walls. Seems like color's taking a vacation. But we'll have to go through the architectural review board with all of those issues. Here's just going around the building. This is showing the front. We're enclosing the balcony that's on the second floor there and creating a deck that comes out from the third floor so that all of the units will have an exterior space coming down the side. And then this is the side, well, this one and this one are the sides that you'll see from the school. We have approached the school. It's premature for us to make any agreements with them, but we've approached the school with the idea of us potentially doing some landscaping on the school's property, something that would be acceptable to them so that we can provide some screening on that side. The property line is basically right where the building is, so we don't have room to do something, but a couple of well-placed trees here would be very nice. There used to be a beautiful tree, and if it wasn't dying and leaning into the thing, it would still be there. Did you actually end up paying for that removal? The school paid for it? The school paid. Good, that's one. And then the last elevation that I have is the one where the parking lot is, showing that stair tower and the balconies and how the different units kind of lay out. I think it's a real improvement. I think it would be something that helps Dobbs Ferry. It generates additional places for people to live. I don't know if we've adopted it yet, but the board was considering defining Dobbs Ferry as a community that's favorable to housing. And also, the idea that we do have issues with tax base. And this will definitely improve the tax base for the village while providing good places for people to live in a nicer looking building.
Was there ever a prior motion for this property before the village board to do some renovation work?
Not that I've ever been aware of. I mean, it might have been, I think there was a more than a motion, there was a very awkward situation with the owner of the building back before Luigi had it, where,
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
yeah, it was like there were a lot of things that have been changed in the building without benefit of permit.
Right.
I do know that a walkthrough was done by the building department prior to Mr. DiPaolo buying the building.
When did
So-
Mr. DiPaolo buy it?
Hmm?
When did he acquire it?
What was it, 5 years? 2012.
Yeah, I sort of remember us considering some work there, and it's been so many years ago, I can't recall.
Well, you'd go back pretty far.
Yeah. I miss Peter. I had the other half of the brain to remember things.
I did look through, I didn't go back that far, I went back to as far as, you know, I know that nothing was ever proposed under Luigi.
Okay.
So I think what was happening at one point was trying to figure out how to legalize the apartments that people had.
Yes, I think that's correct. Okay.
I mean, I think it's a very desirable improvement to this area, and it is a prominent spot, although somehow I've never noticed this building in all the years I've been here. But I guess, I think, the variances on paper look very substantial, but in fact, they're not at all substantial in terms of what's already there, and so it's really just because you're renovating something that's there. I think the biggest issue is the parking, and I guess could you address, any consideration that was given to adding a space anywhere? I mean, is that possible?
Yeah, it actually, at the risk of undermining myself,
And where did you get the extra 2 spots?
just basically doing a better configuration for the parking spaces. If we took away some of the grass that's there, we could actually double load that, but we'd have to go quite a distance because we can't add parking that's within a certain distance of the property line. So we would have to probably go over maybe 20 feet. So what you'd really see at that corner then would be a parking lot. And I think right now, while it needs lots of loving care, fixing that green up and having that on the corner, I think is desirable. There is parking on the streets in the area, and one of the things that me wearing many other hats, we're trying to encourage people that you don't need lots of cars, and this is a very walkable location. This has a great walk score, and there's even the secret that if you want to get to the train station quicker, you just go down Rochambeau, and you cut right through onto Main Street, and then you go right down and you're at the train station in a short walk. So I hope that people will want to do that. We're also served by the bus lanes. We've got a lot of younger people in the village that are looking for places to live at this point, and probably, I know one person who works for me has a car, but everybody else rides their bike. Kind of interesting times. They're young. My wife won't let me do that anymore. So, I think, we've found that one space per apartment is a manageable thing. It might discourage some people from renting, but there are a lot of apartments in Dobbs Ferry that have no parking, and those also rent out. When we did the study of parking in the downtown, we didn't obviously include properties in what was before not the Broadway zone. It was a different zoning district. We found that the number of cars for the average family in the downtown was less than 1. It's like 0.94, something like that. So there actually are a certain percentage of people in Dobbs who live in this area because they don't need to have a car.
What do the current tenants have, and how do you allocate spots amongst the current tenants?
The most I have seen parked in the parking lot is maybe 5 cars. I haven't talked to the existing tenants and asked them, are they having
So
a
it's kind of
problem?
first come, first served parking.
I don't know. Do people have assigned spaces, or do they just park where they want? Haven't been any fist fights or.
I guess I have a procedural question, and I don't know if you have a thought, Patty, or if anybody else does. If you, because you did indicate you would be interested in a possible payment in lieu of parking, which we don't have the authority to do, but would be an application to the Board of Trustees. So I'm wondering if it makes sense for us to deny that part of your application so that you can have an opportunity to explore it there.
I don't know how that works. I mean,
Yeah, if you're willing to go to the board and ask for a pileup, you could do it that way.
yeah, I mean, what I would hope that you would do is make the wording clear. That while we have no objection to the number of parking spaces, we see the opportunity here to, augment the resources that we have to improve parking and walkability in the community by not granting the variance, but instead, we recommend that, a pilot be adopted.
Yeah, maybe we can hold
could
that
write-
in abeyance some.
Right, and if you want to write a recommendation to the planning board, you could do that on the parking.
Mhm.
You have any objection to that? In other words, one of the things that Dobbs has right now that's a little strange is the zoning board clearly understands the need for funds to create better parking in Dobbs Ferry. What we should have as our system is somehow you get to go first to somebody who could give us the pilot. But the process we have is it starts with the zoning board because we're not compliant. So we can't have, it would have been awkward for us to go to them first, ask for it, and then have that. I don't think, maybe they can do that mechanism at some point. You can work it out, right, Dan? You could have.
You
like-
could, no. I think they could just write a recommendation to the planning board on the parking. And if you're willing to suggest it to them that you pay the pileup, you go that way.
Yeah. Is the pilot for this under the jurisdiction of the planning board, or does it have to go board trustees?
It'll be the board of trustees, but it's gonna go to planning board either way,
Right.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, alternative. could you
I'm not
include
sure,
this
but I'm-
subject to all of that? I mean, 6 of one, half dozen the other, but
Um,
then does it have to come back to us if it's not approved?
Well, it could end up coming back to us either way, though.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a way to phrase that, which would be, we believe that the applicant has an alternative solution for parking, which is to approach the Board of Trustees and satisfy the village's requirements for having 3 parking spaces in a pilot. Since that exists, it's premature for us to grant a variance. If the Board of Trustees doesn't see the logic of that and decides not to grant, there's no restriction of us coming back and then seeking the variance from this board.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on this application? No?
Christina, is anybody online? No. Okay.
No, no. Is there a motion to close the hearing?
Second.
All in favor? The hearing is closed. Are there any other motions?
Motion to approve the 3 variances as requested, and the variance with respect to the pileups, as Patty has described it, conditional or however else, but we'll word it as Patty has described it, so that it's not closed out here. It remains subject to the trustees.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Good luck with the Board of Trustees.
Yes, we will see what happens. Thank you so much.
Okay, and that ends our agenda for tonight. So is there a motion to close the meeting? Do I need one?
Motion to close.
All in favor? The meeting is adjourned.
The next game started.
Congratulations, first one in the.
How did it feel,
I
Jeremy?
suppose